Hi, and welcome to my channel, Eccentrically Ajwa B. Okay, and Ajwa is my name. So this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about trusting God to bring, or how I trusted God to bring my husband. Okay, so trusted God to bring my husband in his own time. Trusting God to bring my husband in God's own time. All right. And so I remember the first thing definitely for me was celibacy, waiting to be married. Okay. And so in that sense, I decided I was not going to date. I was going to court at the time when that person came into my life. And so I prayed and left that to the Lord, and ensured that when that person came into my life that he was on the same page with regard to celibacy. Because one thing you don't want to do or think that you can do is change a person's heart or change their mind. For me, it was going to be allowing God to do that. So I had no desire to change the mind of my future husband. If he was to not be, really following, have the same fundamental beliefs, and then later changed it, fine. But my goal was not to, my goal or my intention was not to change that. Okay. All right. So deciding not to date, but to court instead. So I have my notes here so I don't forget it. And accepting that it would not be a quick process, the waiting aspect, accepting that that would not be a quick process. And so I remember being 25 and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be, in 5 years, I'm going to be 30 and there are no prospects in sight. And, but again, I gave it to the Lord, and I trusted that, the person that would come into my life would be someone who was also living his life according to the biblical principles. Okay. And so I had to leave that to the Lord, but trusting it wouldn't be a quick process. Those are time I told myself, if it meant that I get married at 34, 35, then so be it. And for me personally, just me, that would be a long time. But by me stating that to myself and praying that prayer, and that I'm trusting God that if it's at 34, 35, then I know it would be his best, is relinquishing any control of me trying to make something be whatever that it wasn't supposed to be. Okay. And just really giving that to the Lord in faith. Oh yes. And so another thing is like the type of conversations in a courtship, you know what I mean? Which is basically getting to know someone, talking about like faith, talking about the things that are important to go into a marital union. Okay, so not holding back, being honest about what it is that your fundamental beliefs are, making sure that it aligns, because someone likes blue, someone likes purple, that's no problem. But when you're talking about faith and how you're going to raise your children, then that's something different. Okay, so those are conversations that are absolutely important to have. Okay, so for me, it was, definitely speaking boldly about my faith and what I stood for, even with regard to celibacy. Not demanding or trying to persuade the other person for change, which I already said that before. You just want to make sure that person is on the same page. Their beliefs and yours are aligned together, especially when it's regarding your faith. And so for me, that's what I made sure it was, spoke boldly about my faith, spoke boldly about my fundamental beliefs, and, with regard to celibacy, with regard to, denominations, it's important to talk about it. Maybe, you're a Jehovah's Witness, you may be doing something totally different than a particular faith. And so I just wanted to be in alignment without there being confusion when we had children, etc. So that's an important conversation to have. All right. And then, of course, I also talk about, you want to have conversation in a way where how that person thinks about anything. You just bring up topics to see how they think, maybe what their thoughts are about abortion. So it wouldn't be a surprise when you're married to them and they feel a certain type of way about it. some of these controversial topics, it's best to talk about it, because if you're going to be married to the person, you know what I mean, you definitely want to know the way that he or she thinks about certain subject or circumstances. All right, which is why I would also then recommend premarital counseling, which we went through 2 of them. And so, that's definitely quite advisable that you would do that as well. And, stating intentions is so important. I personally did let my now husband know that I had no intentions on dating or courting for 2 years at a time. And courtship is usually less than that anyway, but not dating for, you know what I mean, just to see where it goes. 2 years later, he doesn't know what he wants to do. I don't know what I want to do, whatever like that. It's like if there was a time where, a year has passed and we don't know what we want to do with the relationship, and definitely marriage is not in sight. God bless you, whoever, people that I know, people date for longer times, and maybe they're celibate for 5-10 years, and that's great. That was not my calling or my ministry. And so I let that be known. And it was not in a demanding way. It was just making him aware so that, at that appointed time, when the relationship ended, no one would be surprised. And I knew that I would definitely end the relationship if we could not decide what we were going to do. Because for me, you don't want to waste any more time. But it was wonderful to be with someone who also didn't want to waste any time. Just kind of want to find out, is this the right person for me? It's not about rushing, okay, either, because that's important. And this is why we attended 2 premarital counseling classes before we ended up being married. Those endorphins and all that will have you wanting to do things like the next day. But marriage is definitely a long life commitment. And I view it in that manner, and sacred and all that manner. So definitely wanted to take time for it. But of course, before marriage, premarital counseling, making sure that we're having that necessary conversation. And so the most important thing, I think, with not having that pressure and being able to be open, sharing what you think, how you feel, your convictions, your personal convictions, is being friends. And that's what I was with my husband. We were friends. We were not in a relationship in the beginning, because I think sometimes when you decide in maybe even a month of getting to know each other, and it could be that case for someone, but my point is, the sooner you get into a relationship as having that title, sometimes it puts pressure on an individual, and one doesn't want to be as honest as they could be or should be. And so I think staying in a friendship zone in the beginning allows to say, hey, if I want more from you than just friendship, then I'm going to have to, let guard down, open up. I'm getting to know you and go from there. So, deciding that I was going to court and not date anymore, which courtship will be a shorter time, really getting to know each other, our fundamental beliefs, to determine, is marriage for us? Okay. Trusting God, of course, with, celibacy, making sure that person was on the same page, believing that there was someone out there. I can't imagine where they are, but believing that and leaving that part to God. And yes, I encountered people before my husband that were not on that same page, and I had no problem, letting that relationship go. It was easier to do it because I was honest with myself and knew what it is that I wanted and what my convictions were, what my faith was, and how I wanted to live my life, okay? And so I was able to not linger the relationship on. And I think they were able to feel that energy from me as well. And I was vocal, of course, about it, respectfully, and no intentions to change their mind about it. So let me go back through here again so I don't forget those things I listed initially. Decided not to court and decided not to date, but to court instead. Trusting God that he will bring my husband in his own time. accepting that it wouldn't be a quick process, or it may not, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. It may not be a quick process. So I'm not going to be expecting something to happen suddenly overnight, and telling myself that, hey, if this takes another 10 years for it to happen, then so be it. I'm open to that as well. You know, with the relationship, was asking direct questions, you know, making sure that our fundamental beliefs were aligned, specifically our faith, and living according to the scripture. All right. And of course, I just said that speaking about my faith, I'm not demanding to change that person, because then you'd have wasted time on someone who was not for you, while the person who was already prepared for you would think that you're in a relationship and you're already occupied. And so you miss out on the person that you're supposed to be with, because you're fooling around with someone you're not supposed to be with, trying to persuade to change him, when he's going to be how he's going to be, until God decides to change him, until he decides to make a change in his life or her life. All right. And then, of course, you know, stating the intentions. I knew I wanted to be friends with a person to really get to know them. And then stating intentions. For me, I knew that I was not going to be dating somebody for 2 years. It was not over 2 years. It was not going to happen with no marriage talk and plans, okay, in motion. And so if you couldn't decide if I was going to be your husband, and if that's the situation, or wife, that was in my case, then, you know, we don't need to continue this. And I told him in the beginning, before we even, I believe, started dating, or the early part of our dating relationship, that not my intention to be in a relationship for 2+ years, not knowing what we're going to do. So about that time, I would end the relationship. And I knew that I would end the relationship. It's like, you've been there, done that, got a gold sticker for it. And you know that you're not wasting time anymore. So you're not rushing it, okay? There's a difference. You're not rushing a relationship, but what you're doing is ensuring that you are with someone who is a potential mate, and you're not just dragging along another human being just for the sake of doing so. All right. Hope this was helpful for you. All right. And again, I know it's not a one size fits all, but you have to come to a place where you are confident in those things that you value, and you seek out someone who has the same as well. All right. So thank you again for watching, and you all have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.